Happy Sunday, happy Sunday, happy Sunday. It is Coach Lee, your productivity and accountability coach. Happy Sunday. Here for another Sunday of, you've guessed it, Success Starter Series. Y'all know we go live each and every Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we set your week up for success, because y'all know in doing the work to set your week up for success, you're ultimately doing the work to set your life up for success. And as your productivity and accountability coach, I'm here to equip you, empower you, motivate you, all the things to do just that, to find that hidden time in your day. It's the first Sunday of a new month. Y'all know that, right? So what that means, new month, new topic. And the theme for the month of August is all about elevating and converting. So like, let's go higher, but in the process, let's become better at the same time. Okay. And so as we kick that off, or as we kick the month off, kick that theme off, kick that topic off, we're going to talk about prepping for peace, because in order to elevate and convert and all the things, we want to make sure you have peace. So hopefully throughout the course of this live, I give you a plan to help you reset and plan for August, if you haven't done so already, or if you're in the process of finalizing, your planning or your preparation for the month. This is going to hopefully be what it is that you need to set yourself up for an aligned August, and to make sure that you're ready to do the work, because we're coming off of resetting and rebuilding with, the middle of the year, that 6-month reset and all the things. So now that we've kind of reset ourselves and put ourselves in this position, now let's take it up a notch. And when you think about that and when you look at that, I want you to understand that it's all good. Like, it's all good in the sense that as you're planning, as you're preparing, as you're doing the work, as you're showing up, it doesn't have to be complicated. When we talk about setting your week up for success, when we talk about doing the work to set your life up for success, we're always in the back of our mind, should have simplicity in mind. And in that, with that, and through that, it's about making sure that like peace is the priority, because not only does your mental health matter, but you matter. And so when we can do things from a place of peace, not only will we be more likely to stick with it, but it often will help it flow a little bit easier. Because when we're forcing things instead of letting them flow, that can be a problem. So let's dive in. Let's talk about looking at the power of prepping ahead. Y'all know I normally talk about, and I always talk about, kind of using the last week of the month to plan and prepare for the month ahead, so that you don't feel behind the 8 ball necessarily coming into the month. And I know that we're officially in August, but as the month is here, if you haven't done that work to plan and prepare, or if like me, you had the best laid plans and they went astray, so you didn't get all of your prep done before the first of the month hit, and you're like, okay, what can I do? Because generally speaking, we talk about how, planning ahead helps prevent burnout and things like that. But you can also use, like, I suggest using the last week of the month to plan for the month ahead. But also you can ease into the month by using the first week of the month to plan for the month ahead. And so no matter what, whether you're planning ahead or planning as you enter, excuse me, the goal is that in having a plan, in using a plan, in working the plan, you're preventing burnout. Because so often the reason that we burn out and what it is that we're doing, what it is that we're going through, how it is that we're going, is because we just kind of going with the flow. And if you just go with the flow without actually having a plan that's going to be that strategy, then what you going to do? And so I know I was talking about, like, in my stories and things like that, like coming into the month, like, it's epiphany essentially that I had. Like, I love a good plan. I am a planner. Hello, productivity and accountability coach. But sometimes with the plan, there's a gap between planning and execution. And strategy is oftentimes that missing link, or what I realize is the missing link. And so when you're working on creating this plan, you understand the end result that you're going for. And so the plan is helping you to get there, i.e. the strategy. So you understand where you want to be. Like, you set your goals, you have these plans, you have these intentions, you have this thought, you have this mindset and all of that as you're coming into this month, and as you are, going through the month of August, and you're like, this is what I want by the end of the month, this is where I'm working on, this is what I'm looking to do. And so you understand that end result. So now you're like, okay, what's my plan to make it happen? Like, what is my to-do list? What is my checklist? All of that. But the strategy aspect comes into play in making sure that this plan is something that you're able to stick with. It's something that you're able to be consistent with. Something that you're able to stay disciplined to or committed to, no matter what happens as life lives. when I go back to my word and phrase for 2025, it's I'm committed to be consistent and determined to stay disciplined. So essentially, that's all about saying that as life, because we know that life is going to life, what are you going to do to make sure that you're still showing up? When work gets busy, when business gets busy, when life just becomes ghetto, like what are you going to do to make sure that you're staying on track? And all those things might happen at the same time. So kind of understanding what are the non-negotiables that you're going to make sure that happens. And sometimes what we need to do is take a step back and realize that not everything has to happen every day to be consistent. I've talked about before how consistency doesn't mean doing something every day. Your definition of consistency, depending on the thing or the task, might look differently. There might be things that your consistency is doing every day. For example, maybe working out, moving your body, things like that, drinking a certain amount of water. Whereas there might be other things that you're like, okay, as long as I do these 3 to 4 times a week, 4 to 5 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week, whatever that number might be, that is consistent in that area, because as long as you're doing it, you're moving it forward. And here's the thing, those minimums are just that, minimums. There might be times or there might be weeks where a task that you're supposed to do 2 to 3 times a week, you have the ability or the capacity to do it daily. But the benefit and the reason behind having like the minimum viable product, so saying I'm going to do this thing 2 to 3 times a week, is that when you have those weeks where life is life and work is working, business is businessing, and like all the things aren't necessarily going as they should, whether all 3 of those things are crashing and burning at the same time, or you're crashing and burning in one area, you understand that I might not have to do it today, but I just need to get it done this number of times across the week. And so that's what I've been really focusing on as I was setting my goals, setting my intentions, to understand what are the things that I need to do daily for me, going for my walk, working out, drinking my water. And then what are the things that maybe I don't need to do every day, but I need to do, a couple times a week. And checking in on like my coaching communities is like one of them, like communities that I'm a part of. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that 3 times a week, so that I can make sure that I'm clearing the notification, I'm not missing any alerts, things like that, and I'm still staying tapped in. But it's not necessarily something that I have the capacity to do every day, because I'm in 3 different ones, or like 3 different communities, and they're all on the same platform. One isn't very active, like only the coach really posts. One is active in that like we post, the coach, like we all kind of post. And then the other one is super duper active in that the coach is posting a lot, but then people are also posting, and we're commenting and we're engaging, and she's tagging, and all the things are happening. And so I can't necessarily do that every day, because sometimes it's just enough for me to, get on social media, get my post out, things like that, that to have to tap in with this every day isn't necessarily sustainable. And then especially with it being 3 different ones. So I'm like, okay, 3 times a week, I can handle that. And then in the course of that, not only will I stay engaged, but I'll stay up to date. And it's more likely that my engagement will be thoughtful and meaningful, as opposed to I'm just doing this just to get it done. And so when we talk about and think about prepping and planning ahead, those are things that you're kind of thinking about, like your capacity, your energy, what's happening this month that you know about. Because what's on your calendar now is what's on your calendar now. It's rare, not saying that it doesn't happen, that things are going to come off the calendar. What's likely going to happen is that things are going to be added to the calendar. And so if we can understand that this is what my calendar looks like now. So as I'm planning with the thought process in mind that things are likely going to be added. If there are days that you don't want nothing to be added, go ahead and block those days. Whether that's saying do not schedule, ask before scheduling, only X, Y, and Z type of things can be scheduled. And that can mean for work, for business, and even for yourself, to remind yourself that I blocked this time off for a reason. And so when you start looking at and thinking about like planning and preparing ahead, that's what hopefully should come to mind for you. Because over planning isn't going to get you anywhere. Well, let me take that back. Over planning will get you somewhere. Stressed out, burnt down, and overwhelmed. And that's not where we want you to be. And so when you can understand that, you can then check in with yourself and be like, am I in alignment? Like the idea of an alignment check, let's think about it in the situation of a car. You need an alignment check when you take your hands off the wheel and you're not going where you want to go no more. Like you're not going straight and in that straight line. And so an alignment check is like, I'm pulling a little to the left, a little to the right. I'm not really staying balanced, and I'm not really staying in line with what it is that I need. So where do you need to check your alignment at? In what area and what capacity, essentially, do you need to check in with yourself? Honestly, the answer is every area. But in doing this alignment check, ask, where am I in business? Am I making progress? Am I making the progress that I need to be making? is like, are the things that I'm doing helping move me forward? In business, I said business. At work, same question. Like for me, I found myself hitting the squeaky wheel, but not necessarily doing some of those things that would help me plan and prepare for those things that are 3, 4, 5 months down the line, as opposed to those things that are just set for the next 30 to 45 days. And so in life, same thing. What are you doing, and like how are you looking ahead to plan and prepare? Like maybe you got vacation coming up and you like, ooh, I've been eating. Like let me rein this bad boy in so I can make sure that I'm looking tip top shape for vacation. Maybe it's getting your flight for vacation. Figuring out the activities, whatever the case may be. In any area of your life, you need to check in and say like, are the actions that I'm taking, are the things that I'm doing in alignment? We were talking on Clubhouse earlier today, in a Clubhouse room, and we asked, or the theme or the topic for the room was, I can't even remember what it was, but essentially it was asking like, are you in alignment? Like, this is aesthetically pleasing, or is this actually actionable? So like, are you in alignment, or does it just look pretty? Because sometimes, most often, we just plan. We have these pretty plans that look pretty on paper. You buy these, you spend all this money on these plans, and they just look pretty. But when you open it up, it's nothing inside. So does this just look pretty, or is this actually practical? Is this actually working? And so when you do this alignment check, essentially you're asking like, am I just making this pretty plan? Or am I actually taking action and getting done what needs to be done, showing up in the ways I need to show up and all of that? Like, what is it giving what it needs to give, or what? And so as you're doing your reset, or as you're doing your planning for August, you want to make sure that you're planning and preparing not only for what's likely to come, and I get that we can't predict the future, but in understanding that this pretty plan that I've made, it's going to be some hiccups somewhere in there. So how can I maybe build in buffer time, buffer days? Like how can I like give myself space to know that something's going to have to give sometimes, and I'm understanding what has to give. How are you able to identify and understand what things do I need to do daily, weekly, 2 to 5 times a week? Not making it that big of a rank. Maybe there are things you need to do 2 to 3 times a week. Like I said, like checking in with the community. That's going to be 3 times a week. Maybe like pitching for podcasts. It's going to be, 3 to 4 times a week or something like that. Like whatever that might look like for you. Depending on what your tasks are, depending on what your goals are, posting on social media, checking in with your friends, checking in with your family, whatever it might look like. Like, what does that look like, and how are you planning and setting those things up? And so when you can understand that, like, as you're doing that examination phase with that alignment check to figure out, like, where am I out of alignment? Am I out of alignment? What adjustments do I need to make to get myself back on course? Then that's where the structure really comes into play. And when you think about structure is all about having systems, having like scheduling, like planning it out, and having some sort of like accountability. So like self-accountability. So if we're going to make them all S's, like if we're going to talk about structure, we're going to use like 3 S's. We're going to talk about systems, scheduling, and self-accountability. And so what does that look like, and what does that mean for you as you are kind of going through this process and going through this phase? When you're looking at this plan and this preparation that you're doing for August, to plan, to reset, to get in alignment, to understand your non-negotiables, to understand the task, to understand what it is that you're doing, when you're doing it, and how often you're doing it, that's where having a system comes into play. The system is essentially that game plan. The scheduling is, what are the things that I need to do at what frequency? And then that accountability, that self-accountability comes in with, maybe you have a checklist. You have something that says, am I hitting the markers? I talk about doing your brain dump, making your to-do list each and every week. And essentially, that's that accountability, because you're checking in to figure out, what did I get done, or what's left over that I did not get done this week? What do I need to do this week, and how am I going to plan and schedule these things out? And so me telling y'all each and every week, do your brain dump, make a to-do list, schedule it out, is you being able to have that self-accountability each week to look back, and as well as looking forward to plan and prepare for what's to come. And so when you have this system of planning and preparing, to essentially you're putting it on autopilot. Yes, you still got to sit down and do the actual work, but autopilot in the sense that I know it's this day of the week, this needs to happen. And I get that when I'm telling you to have those things that you're doing on certain number of days, certain number of times a week, you might not be putting it on a specific date because life is on life, and you want to make sure that at the end of the day you hit the number, not necessarily the day. But as you're planning out your week, you might be able to look across and see that, okay, this looks like a good Monday task, Tuesday task, whatever day of the week task it is that you need to plan it for and put it on. And so what I really want you to understand and what I really want you to think about and start focusing on, or maybe I should say stop focusing on, is over planning. Over planning is not the same as being prepared. Over planning is having that aesthetically pleasing thing that isn't practical. And so sometimes when we spend too much time planning and not in the implementation or the execution phase, we have this really pretty thing, that plan that you spend all that money on, but when you open it up, it's blank. Or it's filled in because you spent so much time filling it in that there's nothing on the back end. I remember coming into this year, my friend, or was it last year now? I think it was this year. My friend was doing a bullet journal. And I don't really know a lot about bullet journals, but I know it's basically a blank journal and you kind of create it and customize it how you want. But because it's a blank journal, you have to set these, set the pages up not only every month, but, weekly within as well. And so she started early in like late November, early December, and was planning it and, drawing it out, figuring out what was going to work, what wasn't going to work. But now here we are in August, and we were joking about it the other day. I think she told me March or April. That's the last time she used it. So don't get so focused on making it pretty that you leave yourself no time to actually do the work. I'd rather you start messy. I'd rather you take messy action. I'd rather you make progress and implement than you get so stuck on, I don't even want to say the end goal because it's not the end goal that you're focusing on. That you get so stuck on making it pretty, that you get so stuck on getting dressed up, like you get so stuck on washing the car, getting it all detailed and stuff that you forget to put gas in there, so you going nowhere. So what does that mean when it comes to how you're showing up, what you're doing, and what you're not doing? This isn't about saying hustle more. It's not. It's about being intentional, being in alignment, and making sure that you're implementing and working on the plan. Having a system, having a schedule, having that self-accountability, understanding like those daily non-negotiables or those weekly non-negotiables or those every 3 times a week non-negotiables, whatever the frequency is based off of the specific task that you're identifying for yourself. Because let's be real, strategy without peace is just burnout with a plan. I know you're like, wait, say that again. Strategy without peace is burnout with a plan. So essentially, if you have this plan, but you have no strategy behind it, all you're going to do is burn out. You're going to have this aesthetically pleasing thing that you're doing nothing with. So I hope this helps you to plan and prepare for what's to come. Because peace over pressure every single time. And if you hear this, you're listening to this, and you're like, all right, I'm picking up what you're putting down. I'm ready. I'm ready for some help. I'm ready for some support. You can comment the word reset or go to the link in my bio, and you can book your personalized productivity audit. In a personalized productivity audit is free. In 20 minutes, we can look at and understand like what's taking your peace, what's taking your time, your energy, your capacity, and how can we fix that? How can we get you in alignment to make sure that you're ready to do? And we can look at the different ways that I can support you in doing that. So yeah, it's time to plan and prepare for peace. It's time for you to get your game plan in place when it comes to getting in alignment this month, to make sure that you understand and you're looking at the power of planning and preparing ahead, that you're examining your alignment checklist to figure out are you in alignment or not, and that you're creating that game plan to execute by having the structure through systems, scheduling, and self-accountability. So it's been Coach Lee, your productivity and accountability coach, here for another Sunday of You've Guessed It, the Success Starter series. Y'all know we go live each and every Sunday. We'll be back next Sunday, same time, same place, ready to continue to dive in and continue to elevate and make change and convert as we go through the month of August. So until next time, it's been Coach Lee, your productivity and accountability coach. Coach Lee is